Hello, welcome to today's Live at 5, which is continuing the theme of how to attract clients online. So, this particularly applies to you if you're working online, but I also think it'll help you even if you are working face to face in your local area. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight is to do with the importance of knowing who your clients are. So, this idea of niching and why it works. And we'll be talking about something called content marketing, which you may have come across in your reading and learning about marketing. I'm just going to outline why it's important and how it can help you, because that's what we want to do. We want to get it that you're getting a nice steady stream of clients coming to your door, whether that be online or an actual physical door. So you're very welcome. And if you've just started watching and you're on the replay, do pop a hashtag replay into the comments and then I can catch up with you afterwards. So thanks very much. And obviously I'm going to be keeping my eye on the comments. If you see me looking away, it's because I'm just keeping an eye on the comments. So if you're watching, do pop in and say hello. You're very welcome, and let's get started. Righto, so the first thing to say is that it can be really difficult to stand out online. I was just talking to someone this morning who'd actually done some of the research and was somebody who was interested in working online and had looked at the figures. And I can't remember exactly how many therapists she said were working online, but she did say that about 19,000 of them were saying that they work in grief and bereavement. And her question was, how can I make myself stand out if that's the case? And this is part of what we're going to be talking about tonight, how you can make yourself stand out. And it is one of those things, isn't it, is that most therapists would tick a box saying they work with grief and bereavement. Quite a lot of therapists would probably tick a box saying they work with relationships, or tick a box saying they work with trauma or depression or anxiety. I think many of us would tick all those boxes. So how on earth do you make yourself stand out to people? And I think the thing to think about is we'll come back to directories, but for a moment, let's put directories to one side. That's obviously one of the first steps that we take when we're thinking about our marketing, because it's a fairly low cost and easy thing to do, especially if, say, you're using Psychology Today, where you can get 6 free months. So it's basically free to set up. But the problem is, of course, is that there's thousands and thousands of other therapists who are on there as well. And so, a client lands on that particular site and, it's like picking a needle out of a haystack, isn't it? So really what you want to do is you want to be able to reach people perhaps before they even get to that stage of looking on, say, counselling directory or counselling directory. So how can you do that? And it's how to stand out. And this is where the idea of niching is so helpful, because if you try and speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And if you're being very, very generalist in what you're putting out there, that means it's difficult for people to recognize themselves. And it means it's really difficult for you to know exactly how to appeal to them, because you're trying to appeal to everyone. And that is really tough, because there's so many different types of people out there. If you're trying to meet all of their needs, where do you start? Where do you pick out what's important to them? Because what's important to one person will be really not very important to someone else. And so the idea of niching is actually choosing an area where, you sort of know what's important to them. And it might be that you can know what's important to them because you'll have worked with those sorts of people before, or possibly because it feels very familiar because of your own life experience, or possibly you could even go out and do some market research and find out what it is that's bothering a particular group of people. It just gives you the keys, the things that you can use to show them that you empathize and that you understand where they're coming from and you understand what their problems are. And that's the whole point of having a niche, really. You're using it to show people that you understand their problems. And the more that you work with a particular niche, the better your understanding of what people in that niche feel like is, the better your knowledge about how to help them. And it becomes a win-win situation. They get to work with someone who's very experienced in working with the sorts of problems that they're bringing. But everybody who comes to work with you from that niche, you're learning more and more about how you can market yourself to them. So it's actually a really helpful marketing strategy to use. So that's the point of using it. And how do you actually show them that you understand their particular problems? And how do you do that if you're not, say, using the counselling directory or Psychology Today or whatever? You can do it with other areas of content. And this could be a whole lot of different things. So typically, content marketing is things like doing a podcast, writing a blog, doing social media posts, creating videos. It's all content, and that can help to attract people to you. And the thing is when you're working online, there's a lot of people out there who are writing blogs, say. So the more you know your niche, the better able you are to be able to make your blog stand out to your ideal clients. And just to say, as an aside, some people really object to the word ideal clients because they say, I don't want to favour a particular type of client over another. So you could just bracket that off for a moment. When I'm talking about ideal clients, we're just sort of talking about people who you would really love to work with, and the sorts of people who might be within your niche, who you find it really a joy to work with. Those would be what I mean by ideal clients. But it's not to say you can't work with anybody else, because of course you can. So it's helpful to know your niche, because that can help inform you as to the people that you're going to speak to, as to the way you're going to speak to them. So going back to the grief and bereavement example, you could pick a particular aspect of grief out. So it could be something like the grief of losing a child, for example. And you would aim all your content towards that sort of grief. Or if, say, you're using anxiety is your niche, you might pick out a particular anxiety trait that you love to work with. So it might be social anxiety or health anxiety, and you might aim most of your content towards talking about that sort of thing. And when you know your clients, you'll begin to find there's an awful lot that you can say around those sorts of issues. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to produce content that they can almost identify themselves in the content, and where perhaps you're sharing useful tips, you're signposting them, you're helping them know how they can make a difference to that particular problem. Because people will be searching for answers to their problems. And this is how you can pick them up before they even think about counselling, is that you start answering their problems, and they can then see that you're a therapist, and you can start putting in your content, have you thought about therapy? And did you know that you could work with me? And it helps people to know that actually working with you is an option, that there is counselling help out there, and that counselling might be something that could help them. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're showing them the empathy for their problems, and that creates a connection with them. And when you've created a connection with them, that gives you the know, like, and trust, that they will know, like, and trust you. And that makes it a whole lot easier for them to pick up their phones and actually send you a message, whether it be email or phone you, or whatever way it is that you ask for people to contact you. So it's all about getting people to create a connection with you. And sometimes when you're working online, it can take an awful lot for people to trust you. They say that you need a certain number of touch points before people will actually begin to trust you. And especially that's true on social media. We tend to be quite distrustful of people for an obvious reasons. There's a lot of scammers out there. So, we do need to build up a trust with someone before we find that courage to actually contact them. And you use your content marketing to create that trust. so that they feel more able to get in touch with you. And the algorithms can work in your favor, say on social media. Once someone starts following you and they start commenting on your posts, then Facebook will send more and more of that stuff in their direction. So you can begin to create a relationship with someone online. And it's a little bit different with things like blogs, but if people are searching for a particular answer, if your blog gives them the answer that they're looking for, they'll come to your website. You can do things like in your blogs, you can provide internal links. So they'll go from one blog to another blog, and they go down this rabbit hole of looking at your website, and that might make them feel much more confident in you and much more like they want to work with you. You're putting calls to action in your blog so that people know to take action, for example. And there's lots of debate about what's the best way for you to do your content marketing. And some people will say, oh, social media is no good. Social media is not your land. And in some ways, blogging is better because when they land on your website, they're not getting distracted by what else they've got to scroll through. They're on your website. But, blogging can be quite a high ask, especially if you're not particularly a writer. And it might be that, for you, having an Instagram post where you're putting up illustrations or something, that might attract clients to you and that might work for you. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. It's finding what works for you. And sometimes that does require a bit of experimentation and dipping your toe into the water and seeing what works for you, which, if you're on social media, which platform works for you, or if you're thinking about podcasting or blogging, so working out, or YouTube, working out actually what's the best thing for me and how can I make that work. And then, also being quite consistent with it. There's no point really doing one or two posts. You need to be posting consistently and establish some sort of rhythm for you so that you know that you're always going to post at a certain time. So you may have noticed that I always do Tuesdays at 5 p.m. That's when I do my Tuesday live at 5. That helps my brain, but also it helps your clients because they know that that's when you're going to be doing it. So that consistency really helps, and it means that you can begin to produce quite a lot of content. People can go back and they can look through stuff, and you will get people contacting you saying, I've been following you for a while and I feel ready now to get in touch with you. So it's obviously quite a lot more to it than what I've just described in this very short little piece of training. And this is where I work with my therapists in more detail when I work with them in the Therapy Growth Group, which is my paid membership group. But if you just want a little bit of a pointer, you can see that I've got my Find Your Niche workshop coming up. I've popped in another date because it was really, really popular. I had quite a lot of people attending it. So I thought, well, I'll pop in another date. And people found it really helpful to help them start thinking about their niche, because that is really the sort of starting point. So if you'd like to come along to that, if you haven't done so yet, please do come along. It's next Thursday, the 23rd of November, and I ask for a very small £10 fee as a mark of commitment that you're actually coming. And there's so much more I can say, and I haven't actually done exactly what I wanted to say. That will have to wait until another time because otherwise I'm going to lose you, because it'll be too long for you to be listening to me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you again next week for my Live at 5. Bye for now.